Ladies and gentlemen, they are still busing migrants from Texas and now Arizona. 13,000 migrants are being shipped from those states into other states. Ladies and gentlemen, if you think you're not going to see these people or they're not coming around you, you better think again. They are shipping them everywhere. So, and we know Florida has recently did shipping up to Martha Vineyard this past week. And this is going to continue. And yes, the Democrats are the ones that want to open the borders. And we know, Trump, when he was in office, he didn't want all of these people in, you know? And the bottom line is they're here. It doesn't matter what president is in office at the end of the day, they're not making these people leave. They're going to keep bringing them in. And look, you remember those caravans were coming to the border even when Trump was in office. So it really doesn't matter. Democrat, Republicans, they come in here and both of them hire these people. Go look at these rich folks in America. It doesn't matter whether they're right or left, they hire these people. And they have for many, many decades. Cheap labor, because that's what these folks are all about. And look at it this way, these folks will come in here and get a leg up over the people that were born here. Look at what they have done. There are sanctuary cities, sanctuary counties, sanctuary states. When have they ever given the descendants of the enslaved in this country any sanctuary places anywhere? See, these folks get that so the police can't bother them, but they leave us lying out in the open to get bothered by cops. But this is what they do for them. They get more safety measures than the people that were born and raised here. They get more money, they get more opportunity. The government will set aside all kinds of programs for them so that they can come over here and get on their feet. Yeah, some of them get deported out of here, but let's be real. Let's be really real. They don't deport the majority of them, y'all. Them few people they deport is a drop in the bucket. It really is. The vast majority of them that make it into this country, they don't leave and they don't get deported. And that's the truth. So, y'all, I have some audio from the Wall Street Journal that I want you to listen to.
As migrant buses take thousands north, some embrace free ride. Republican governors in Texas and Arizona have sent nearly 13,000 people to the other side of the country in the latest political fight over the border. By Alicia A. Caldwell in Del Rio, Texas, Jimmy V. Elkind in New York, and Joe Barrett in Chicago. September 23, 2022, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. 3 days after Yordalis Bermudez crossed the Rio Grande into Texas, she and her family faced the same daunting question thousands of migrants do each day: what to do next. I didn't have any idea where I was going to go, said the 22-year-old Venezuelan native, who arrived with her husband and infant son. Ms. Bermudez hopes to receive asylum, a process that can take years. Federal immigration authorities scheduled the family's first court hearing in New York, so when officials at a border shelter said they could put her on a free bus to the city, she joined the nearly 13,000 people who have been transported to the other side of the country by state officials in Texas and Arizona. Florida's recent flights ferrying 49 migrants by plane from Texas to Martha's Vineyard have generated a lawsuit, a criminal investigation, and national controversy. The human impact of that episode is small compared with the busing programs the Republican governors of Texas and Arizona have been operating since the spring to quickly transport migrants from the border states most affected by this year's surge in illegal immigration. They initially all went to Washington, D.C., and some from Texas now go to New York and Chicago. Migrant advocates and Democrats have accused the governors of using the migrants as pawns in a political stunt. Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Arizona Governor Doug Ducey have countered that they are seeking to share the burden of a record migrant surge with states and cities led by Democrats, whose policies they argue are drawing people to enter the U.S. illegally. Among those affected, the buses have proven less controversial. Several migrants said they were happy to take advantage of the easily available free rides to quickly start establishing a new life in parts of the country far from the border. Ms. Bermudez said the bus ride was uncomfortable, with brief bathroom breaks and not enough food, but she is grateful to be in New York. The family is living in a hotel paid for by the city. Her husband is looking for odd jobs, and her son, Jean Paul, celebrated his first birthday recently with a cake brought by a member of a local church. At the moment, I'm content and all's well, she said. I'm happy to have a roof. Most complaints have come from state officials and immigrant advocates who said Texas and Arizona officials have done little to coordinate with those who can assist migrants in their destination cities. The Republican border state leader said that is no different than what they deal with every day, and that those who support the Biden administration should experience the effects of federal immigration policy failures. Texas has spent about $13 million to bus nearly 11,500 migrants out of state, while Arizona has spent some $4 million transporting nearly 2,000 people. Washington is the source of the problem, said C.J. Karamarjan, Mr. Ducey's communications director. Our message is that with this situation, the way it has been allowed to metastasize over the years, every community is a border community. Though the federal government regularly moves people after they enter from Mexico to process them before releasing them, the Texas and Arizona efforts are the first time states have spearheaded such an effort. It has also expanded a years-long trend that has seen states take a more active role in immigration policy, this time by trying to shift the burden of caring for newly arrived migrants to places far from Mexico. This is a totally new chapter, with states going after states, said Muzaffar Chishti, a senior fellow at the Nonpartisan Migration Policy Institute. About half the people who entered the U.S. illegally since last October have been removed, most under a COVID-19 era policy known as Title 42 that allows the government to quickly turn back some migrants before they have a chance to ask for asylum or some other protection in the U.S. The other approximately 1 million were released into the U.S., while they wait as long as several years for asylum claims to be adjudicated. They include families, unaccompanied children, and people from countries such as Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, whose governments won't allow them to return. Asylum seekers often surrender to the Border Patrol, are usually processed within a day or two, and then are released to shelters. From there they head to destinations around the country while awaiting their first court dates. In the past, they had to pay their own fare on buses or airplanes, as many still do. When the large number of crossings has overwhelmed authorities and shelters, people have slept in tents in border cities while awaiting processing, and federal agents have dropped people off in small towns that themselves became overwhelmed. At a shelter in the border city of Del Rio, Texas, migrants deemed eligible for state-funded rides are now sent to the other side of the building, where the Texas Division of Emergency Management organizes the bus trips. Most migrants who opt to board seem grateful, said Tiffany Burrow, who runs the Val Verde Border Humanitarian Coalition Respite Center. They know they have to get from point A to point B, and they weren't quite sure how they were going to do that, said Ms. Burrow. She and a team of volunteers operating out of half of an old city services building have seen about 32,000 people pass through this year, she said. Last year, about 23,000 migrants were helped at the center. Texas began its effort in April with a pledge to bus migrants to the steps of Capitol Hill, which Mr. Abbott said was intended to send a signal to the Biden administration. Arizona quickly followed suit. Typically, the state-funded buses arrive at designated transit hubs, including the Port Authority Bus Terminal in New York and Union Station in Washington, D.C., where aid workers wait to help arriving migrants. City and state officials have complained that there is no coordination with Texas or Arizona about when a bus will arrive. Instead, nonprofits and volunteers have set up informal networks to communicate about when and where buses are headed, said Johannes Fabi, director of the Chicago Immigrant Transit Assistance Program of the Interfaith Community for Detained Immigrants. Democratic officials in Washington, D.C., and Illinois have declared states of emergency. New York has opened 38 emergency shelters and hotels. A senior administration official said Thursday that the city would erect tent cities, dubbed relief centers, to provide food, medical care, and temporary housing for newly arrived migrants. Mayor Eric Adams has said that he was considering using a cruise ship to house newcomers. This is a humanitarian crisis created by human hands, Mr. Adams said Tuesday. And it was a political stunt. Officials in Arizona and Texas have said their busing programs are voluntary, an assertion largely backed up by the migrants who ride on them. Andes Guerrero, a 40-year-old construction worker, and his wife, Jasmine, 44, left Venezuela in early August, traveling for weeks mostly by foot to get to Texas. Once in the U.S., they had no money to get to California as planned, so they took the free ride they were offered to Chicago. The bus was large, new and clean, he said, with 2 police officers and 2 drivers on board. They were given a package of food for the journey, including rice and beans and non-perishable food, and rode for 2 days, he said. Mr. Guerrero and his wife have been staying for the past 2 weeks at a Salvation Army shelter in Chicago, where they have been given new clothes and plenty to eat, he said. He is hoping to get construction work for himself and a cleaning job for his wife so they can help their children, who stayed behind in Venezuela, join them. It is no secret to anyone that we have been in a dictatorship for 23 years, he said of his home country. So the vision of the United States is a country of opportunities. Luis David Montioni and Oscar Jose de Farias, also from Venezuela, left the country because of poor economic conditions almost 5 years ago and had been living elsewhere in South America.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. Yeah, they are going to get plenty of opportunity here. They're right about that. And that's why they keep coming across the border. As long as there are people that are willing to employ these migrants, and they know there are some in America, what's to stop them? They're going to keep coming. And that border is not the only way they come in. They come in other ways too. A lot of them will fly in here, and when their visa expires, they just stay. They just stay and just go under the radar so they don't get caught. But y'all, please tell me what you think, but this is not going to stop. This is going to continue. And unfortunately, you got people in here that love the cheap labor. So as long as there's a need for that cheap labor, this is this is one of those things that will never have an expiration date. But y'all, please tell me what you think about this video. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.